Hey folks, it's Lindsey Hustle with SPS back in the building for another SPS Edge Show. And I got my guy holding me down right here, Mr. Terry McCord Jr., no doubt. We won't have Orlando Watkins with us tonight. He's been called away for some official business, but we also always appreciate him being in the building. Terry, how you doing, man?
I've been doing well. How about you?
Man, I'm great, man. We got the chance to talk offline. I mean, some big things are going on. Big things been happening for SPS, and I appreciate you being a part of the foundation of that going forward. So without any further ado, man, we'll go through with today's show, what we have going on. And first up, we'll talk about 62. That's right. Aaron, the judge, hit home run number 62, breaking a single game in season record by the famed Roger Maris. That was a big deal. But hold on, Terry. It's always a little bit of controversy. Somebody was like, but wait a minute. The record is 73 by Barry Bonds. Now, the question becomes whether you want to put an asterisk by Barry Bonds or not. I don't know, man. And I think I might just fall on the side of those. Hey, man, 62 sound like you 11 short of getting it done. So, it's an accomplishment, but it is not a record. But some may argue otherwise. Now, the last thing I'll say about this before I get your opinion on this is many know about what happened with Barry Bonds, and many frown upon it, and some can argue rightfully so. But at the end of the day, despite this asterisk that people put, and despite what people think he may or may not have done to help him do that, it's still 11 ball home run lead on what Aaron Judge did. But let's not take anything away from Aaron Judge's accomplishment just recently. That ball is going for some $2 million from what I hear. But what do you think so far about the accomplishment of him getting 62 in-season game home runs?
Well, I mean, it's a big year for him. Coming into the year, he turned down a 7-year extension worth $213.5 million, which would have made him one of the highest paid players at the age of 30. So, I mean, he's coming in betting on himself and has definitely made that decision look very good. So, I mean, dude is balling. Yankees are second seed coming into the postseason.
He's the Lamar Jackson of baseball. He's the Lamar Jackson of baseball.
Yep. So, I mean, hey, you can bet on yourself, but football is a different game, different position. But Lamar looks to be in that same, same area with Judge. We're betting on himself, and it's going to turn out really well with him being an MVP candidate this year already. So I just think Judge, man, he's a guy who's gotten a lot of scrutiny over the last couple of years with his performances, getting injured a lot, kind of being a liability at the plate, striking out. And this 62 was hard to get to. I mean, pitchers were walking him because he was hot. I mean, pitchers are still competing to try and win games. Yeah. So they're not just going to let you get to 62, but just for him to put it together. And now, all eyes are on the Big Apple. I mean, second seed. The Astros are right there looking at him at the 1 seed. I just think the Yankees, no better way to cap it off. But we've seen this before, high expectations in New York, and then they just fail and choke it away. And then the whole media starts talking about, is Judge even worth paying them? I mean, to have a 62 home run career, not to say nothing bad is going to happen in the future. And hopefully they do win. I really don't have a dog in the fight besides the Guardians. I mean, my White Sox are out, but just to say, if all fails and they get out, there's going to be some talks about him getting his money. I mean, he's chose to go into free agency this next upcoming year and see where he might end up playing, and most importantly, what dollar amount.
Right. It's funny. I didn't know that you was claiming the White Sox like that. I don't know if I remember that from.
They got my guy Tim Anderson on that team. That's
right. That's right. I know. Okay. No, man, good point. But I like how you kind of almost gave an interlude for an upcoming topic later on. It's just like people had this idea in America. I don't know if this is along social, economic, race lines, but if you get paid a lot, they want you to produce, and that makes sense. There's an expectation, but the reality is that receiving said payment doesn't guarantee maximum production at said time. Now, a person would argue, I don't want to hear that. You're a professional, but you're right, man. It's like this idea of glamorizing these guys beyond what they are, saying, okay, We want you to hit it every time. And there's no such thing as a slump. There's no such thing as a bad time down or whatnot. But it'd be something to see. It'd be something to see how they cheer him now. And I think from a sports psychology standpoint, I almost want to look at it from the standpoint of, yeah, they're cheering you now. But if you don't come through and if the Yankees don't get to where they're expected to be, which for a while hasn't been the case, man, since we've seen them hoisting that World Championship trophy, it'll be something to see. The World Series trophy it is. So we'll see. So 62, what do you think he'll finish? How many more? Because basically we're done with the regular season games at this point.
Yeah, and they won't resume until because they won't play. I mean, I think they may have a game tonight. I'm not sure, but they won't play their game until the winner of the wild card game between the Guardians and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah,
so
and then at this point, any additional home runs won't count towards this record. They'll be considered postseason. So he got it in how he got it in. Well, that's something we want to congratulate him on that because that still is a feat. I think he hit 62 more home runs than me and you hit, right?
Yeah.
And I put that Barry Bonds piece out there only because it's just sometimes the narrative can change even though the facts haven't. And what I mean by that is we can hold Aaron Judge in such high regard, but at the end of the day, the record books state that Barry Bonds has the most at this point with 73. However, there's an ongoing debate about that, and I'm sure we'll have another chance to get into that. But I appreciate your perspective. And again, I learned something new from you today that the Chicago White Sox are your guys. Okay, got it. I'll be looking like that. We'll keep moving, man. And this is something that may, kind of, have people feel a certain kind of way when you start bringing politics into sports. But at this point, there's no way we can go on without acknowledging the fact that, NFL Hall of Famer Herschel Walker has been running for Senate. I want to say in the state of Georgia. He's had a lot of missteps, and it's unfortunate because I think what we're seeing right now is a time where people are actually using name recognition, something that, the Republicans have been a little bit stronger on doing and putting Herschel Walker out there. He's had a number of gaffes where he's kind of made comments that were like not making any sense. And most recently, he's being caught up on a major issue with the party, which is, the abortion issue and being pro-life. And he's alleged to have, paid for an abortion as recent as I want to say 2009. It may have been, if I want to say that's correct, I can check that. But, when we were talking about these topics, we try to steer away from that. However, I just think it's something to look at because it's the world we live in. Part of us holding these athletes up, like if Aaron Judge ran for mayor right now, he would win. All these players who've had breakout games, breakout events, if they put their name to the ballot, as much as people may argue against it, they'll have a lot of support for it. So what's your take on that going forward as we get some comments coming in?
Yeah, I mean, man, I think the whole Herschel Walker thing obviously has done questionable things in the past. But, man, I think just if you ever think about stepping into that kind of life and what that career may look like for you, these are the consequences that kind of come with it. I mean, they're going to bring these things back into your life. I mean, they'll bring up stuff back in middle school and high school. I mean, it's one of those things where they do check your overall character, quote character. I mean, they look at everything, about how you act, how are you with your teachers. And I mean, it's almost like recruiting. I mean, it's like they look at every aspect of your life and it's all full front and center for everyone to see it. So, I mean, one of his quotes he said is just like, small kid from Georgia who has lived the American dream and wants to keep that alive for you. And so it's just like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, not everyone is as gifted as Herschel was and is able to benefit from his
Everybody
skills.
Can't do push-ups with your wife on your back. You know what I'm saying? He's known for doing that.
So I'm like, I mean, he's definitely lived a different lifestyle. He's been in some interesting company. Probably not the most, the company that we would want him to be in. Who has may have gotten him in some trouble, but I mean, it's one of those things where you get what you came for. You want to be a Senate. These are the things. This is the lifestyle that comes with it. So I mean, everything that you've done in the past comes full and front and center. So hopefully, it does end up well for him. I hope best for the brother, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, look, they're gonna be coming for your neck. You're in a different kind of environment. It's not sports anymore.
Yeah, all the gloves are off. Shout out to Aaron Mays giving us a shout out dynamic duo. Good evening to you as well, brother. Also, shout out to Ron Charles. He's already loaded up some NFL discussions that we'll make sure we get to. Ron, we appreciate Ron. That is, we appreciate you checking in with us and all that as well. But Aaron says Herschel's been a mess. It reminds me of when Barack Obama ended up being pretty much the only Senate candidate, and the Republican candidate for Senate in Illinois ended up getting, coming out of the race. So they were scrambling, and they put in, your boy Mike Ditka. They put him in there, just as a name, to run. No, he got slaughtered, but it was just like they just looked at that. And also, too, when you talk about, you make an excellent point that this is part of the process, me putting my political hat on. When you're running for office, if you came to me, Terry, and said, Lindsay, I'm going to run for office, and I know that you're a really stand-up guy, but the standard is you're supposed to hire a personal investigator to investigate you. Because the first thing they'll say to a candidate, hey, man, is there anything we should know about? And what do most people say? Oh, no, man, I'm good. Like, no, anything you should know about. You hire that private investigator. That private investigator get to digging. And what happened is they'll come up with something that may be like, look, man, this is an issue. I mean, this is not an elected official, but a young man who was running for a Democratic House seat down, I want to say in the Battle Creek area, he just the party just pulled a plug on him because a young lady, this brother was only 20. The young lady went back and talked about when he threatened to shoot up the school in middle school. And some may say, man, middle school is a long time ago, but the young man is only 20. That was a small window. So when you talk about someone like Herschel Walker running for office, or anyone, whoever it may be, you definitely open yourself up to some things. Oh, and Terry McCord Sr. makes a good point. He said Walker seems to be struggling from CTE from the stuff he says. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. You talk about a dynamic, probably one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant running backs of all time, and the hits that he took. And we're wise enough, even though we're not physicians, referring to myself, Terry, I think it's fair to say, some of the things he says do sound like they're a result of some extreme behavior. And if you ever saw one of the ESPN documentaries on Herschel, he's had a very unique, career. I mean, even as far as him, the reason why he wanted to join the military, the other, split personalities that he's had. But at the end of the day, Herschel Walker has name recognition, and what they're probably saying is that we don't want it to go down. So the question becomes, will we see more athletes, running for office going forward? What do you think?
I think so. And it just shows, again, with I'm glad you brought up the example with President Obama's race for Senate back in Illinois. It just shows how kind of polarized this stuff can be. And
there's probably people. Let me just add this: there's probably people who got an issue with us talking about politics on the sports show.
Yeah, it just shows how polarized it can be, and how much it matters just to have your party affiliate as your name in office. Because I mean, Mike Ditka may not have been the right guy for the job, but they had to get someone's name who they thought would be able to get votes. That's what it's about. Name recognition. Can people align? Is he followable? Does the things he say get people to get on board with him? That's why you see all these campaign ads out, because they want people to get emotional about it. And so maybe Herschel Walker, and it couldn't have been a better place. I think if it's any other state, it wouldn't have worked. It had to be Georgia, based off the success he's had there. I mean, all the conservatives love him in Georgia. So, I mean, it's one of those things where they think that the Republican Party in Georgia feel confident that Herschel has that publicity, he has that attitude, he has that camaraderie around him in the party to be able to pull this off. But I don't think he'll win, but just based off the stuff around him. But who knows? I mean, Georgia's another state that can flip.
It can, but and also too, and I appreciate what you're saying. Also, in many cases, these individuals are just a figurehead. If Herschel Walker was able to get in, it would be all these other individuals, these same bureaucrats who have always been in the process. And sometimes it's like a revolving door where, you get a Republican in and all the same folks come back in office, then you get a Democrat in and it goes back and forth. But again, it's noteworthy. We'll keep an eye on it. I mean, November 8th is coming really soon. It's a few weeks away. We'll see. I think I would agree with you. I don't expect them having success out there, but we never know how it may turn. Who knows? I mean, we said the same thing about, a former governor who was, a movie star and a bodybuilder, referring to Arnold Schwarzenegger. And had he not been a naturalized citizen, meaning had he not been born in America, there's a good chance he could have been and would have now been a former president of the United States, in my opinion. So that's my take on that. I want to shout out Lefty Johnson. Lefty got some some comments ready for our football segment. We'll definitely get to. So we'll keep talking. I'm referring to the NFL, that is. But with that, let's keep talking, man. Hey, talk about something that's going on. You can't deny it, man. You can't deny it. Michigan State woes, man. And woe is the word. Michigan State has not had any success in Big Ten play as of yet, and they are taking on Terry McCord's Ohio State Buckeyes. Terry has no sympathy, no mercy for the Spartan home fans. He doesn't care about that because he's an Ohio State Buckeye. But here's the thing. I think it's I don't know if it's obvious to the viewers or whatnot, or listeners, but for me, you know, I'm a big fan of Mel Tucker. Enjoyed meeting him over these past few years, and I want to see the brother succeed. I mean, I want to see him be successful. But however, from a journalistic integrity standpoint, I mean, it is what it is. Right now, the discussion is, you know, what is going on with Michigan State. Here's what I have, Terry, for the most part. I don't see there being any changes. I think you're going to see a continuation of loyalty, meaning Hazleton's job is safe this season. There's not going to be any other changes or whatnot. And the reality is that people are just going to have to be patient. But there's this underlying theme, though. 100 million, 9.5 million. People love to talk about it, even though they're private donors who are making these payments, if you will, to be able to take off some of that those resources coming from, you know, Michigan State University. But I just think it's an online thing. And I'll just say this, man, in a simple way to another person I'm a big fan of. Shout out to Coach Jim Harbaugh. We saw that in Jim Harbaugh's tenure from 2014 to now. He was getting railed and raked over the coals and all these things. And I'll simply say to anyone out there, you're going to have to deal with ups and downs in the program. The same thing's happening with Jimbo Fisher down in Florida. Matter of fact, they're making national comparisons between Jimbo Fisher, at Texas A&M and Mel Tucker at Michigan State, saying overpaid. I don't believe he was overpaid, because if y'all didn't pay the man the money then, he was going to be out the way. Oh, Latasha Prince, we appreciate you. She jumped in saying, OSU, we know what you're rooting for. But here's my thing. I think it's fair, man, that we can, you know, critique what we see. We can talk about what we see. But when it gets to the point where it is vitriol, where they're saying off with your head, first of all, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And doing something ain't going to change. I'm curious to know what Aaron Mayers, our brother, got to say, and all his Michigan State fans. He said Tucker and the coaching staff must show improvement. He says must. I hear that. Even if they lose games, they must show that they're capable of making adjustments. I agree with the in-game adjustments. And overall, the statement has been that his recruiting class, the individuals he's recruited, are showing improvement going forward. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, when you make a splash, you get $100 million contract, man, don't nobody want to really hear nothing. All they want to do is see success. But the reality is not going to happen that way. But overall, what do you think of things going to be like going into, you know, Saturday against your Ohio State Buckeyes?
Man, I just want to say that if it wasn't for Kenneth Walker, we would have been having this conversation last year. It's one of those things where this has been, you know, going on for going on 2 years now. I mean, COVID year, I gave that one a pass because, I mean, it was a lot of questions.
First year.
Yeah, and I give that one an asterisk just because, I mean, got in late, didn't have much.
But you got to acknowledge, you go acknowledge that Michigan victory that went over Michigan.
Oh yeah, I mean, always. I mean, that's more of a bias seat where it's like, okay, yeah, we can have that one. The rest of them, we ain't really too worried about that one the rest of the season. But I mean, honestly, you know, for me, it's the defense, and I know it's so obvious. I know everyone is just, you know, when they're nitpicking. I mean, they pick the biggest one, the defense. But my thing is, I can't really say it's the offense because the defense just hasn't given the offense much opportunities. I mean, against Washington, limited action at all. I mean, 3 and out, and then they barely got the ball to even try and score for the remainder of the quarter. So I think average time of possession that MSU allows is 34 minutes. Almost 35 minutes a game that the other team is getting the ball and trying to score. I mean, right now they're 101st in FBS in passing yards, which that one is the stat that everyone's watching, the big explosive plays. They're right now averaging 265 yards a game. Within the last 2 games, they've given up 332 yards a game. So just defensively, it just isn't looking good. I mean, when you lose Henderson and lose Snow, the first game of the year against Western Michigan, we knew that these things would happen. But, I mean, you got to have some depth, though. And I think that's what Aaron talks about. They have to get depth across the board. And part of that, I mean, Amir Speed. I mean, another guy who we thought would turn out to be great this year. Great size, great length, great speed.
Yep.
Has not shown up. Kimbrough still struggling a
Yeah, he
little
came
bit.
over from Georgia, with that Georgia,
Yeah.
jury on after that national championship.
Yeah, I mean, Speed isn't really panning out to what we thought he'd be. Kimbrough still struggling. He's in the slot now. He's a nickel corner, where it's typically you put kind of you're not the best cornerback in the middle to tackle more and kind of cover. He's not doing well. Brantley's struggling a little bit on the outside. Just guys are getting targeted. It just isn't looking the best. And good team. I mean, Mel's saying next guy up. But these next guys are up there, but they're not showing up. I mean, it just looks they look unenthusiastic. They look like they don't want to be out there. Against Minnesota, a week after you lose to Washington, going from 11th in the country to unranked, you would think they'd be on fire to come back home against an undefeated Minnesota team, a team that just got dominated by Purdue the week after. You would think that they would come in and want to show up against this team. Just no enthusiasm. I mean, Coach Tucker is the only one enthusiastic about this, but I think Tucker needs to let his team know, I can't want this more than you. I mean, how many coaches have said that to their players? High school, middle school, even Pee Wee. Like, your coach can't want it more than the players. So I don't know if Hazelton is getting his guys inspired to play in this scheme. I don't know if they feel comfortable in this scheme. It looks like a lot of man-to-man and putting guys on islands, and they're getting exposed. So I can't really say offensively. I know my dad said they need a new quarterback, but I don't think Peyton Thorne is that bad, though. I can't really say it's on him when they're not running the ball really well. They're not getting a good pound. I think Walker did carry him last year, but the receivers on the outside are making plays when they can, which they're pretty young. I mean, losing Jalen Naylor last year hurt them more than I thought it would. I mean, just seeing Naylor play the way he did last year shows that, I mean, Jaden Reed getting double teamed, you have another guy on the other side who can make plays for you. So players need to show up. Players need to show why they believe that they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten. And it all just starts with having that heart to compete. And I think this weekend, I mean, MSU having nothing to lose, Coach Ryan Day has made it very known that he's focused on this game because he knows that this game can be a trap game. Playing a team like Michigan State, who's still really skilled on the outside. Oh, yeah. Their O-line struggles. I mean, yes, they're struggling in the interior, which is why they can't really run the ball as great as they would want to. But these are games that can easily be flipped and be a victory. And they're 27-point underdog. 27-point underdog at home. I mean, if there's not much more that needs to be said for you to be for you to play hard on Saturday. I mean, just hearing that you're a 27-point favorite, you're one of the teams that was supposed to compete for the Big Ten East and maybe get a shot at the playoff. And now game 6, you're a 27-point underdog at home against one of the best teams that you got to face this year. I mean, come on. I mean, you should get up to play this one.
That's a tough way to go, and there's no doubt, they should be motivated to do that. But I just think that the Spartan fans are just going to have to really accept the fact that it just may not be the way they want it this season. It happens like that because let me tell you, they didn't expect it to be the way it was last season as well. No. So, it's something to look at. It's something to discuss. I just think that the reality of it is, as high as the expectations may have been, the reality is that those 2 injuries early on, I think, did a big blow. I mean, you're talking about huge guys. I mean, think about the Percy Snow, the visual that they had of him coming, that deep water visual that they had, kind of getting him going and all those type of things happening. So it'll be something to see, man. We'll keep an eye on it, but I can appreciate the fact we'll talk about it. Do you think they're going to cover that spread? They talk about, those, was it 27?
I would surely hope so. I mean, but the way that they've been playing defensively, it's just no fight. And I think Ohio State, their goal, as Ryan Day looks to do, kill their hope from the beginning of the game. So how MSU comes out, the first 5 minutes will dictate if they cover the spread or if they don't. Because it's now to a point where teams are 44% on third down and 60% on fourth down. He may be saying 60%. They don't go for it a lot on fourth down. That's why it's so good. Teams have went for it 10 times and gotten it 6 times on fourth down. Granted, it sounds like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it shows that teams are confident against this MSU defense. They're not afraid of them. I think they need to create turnovers, create big stops, and get their offense more opportunities. I mean, their offense is in, and they're thinking, man, we got to score here, or we may not see the ball back again, allowing the team to possess the ball for 35 minutes. That's not winning football. You want to win the possession, give your team a chance to score points. They're not doing that by letting the team have the ball dang near for the whole game. Half the game is theirs.
Yeah, it's definitely blood in the water, and teams are seeing that, and they're going to go for it. But all the more reason for, Michigan State, had us to be some character building time, and we'll look to see that. I want to stay with football. I want to talk about high school football, another unexpected outcome. Okemos High School, led by a new first-year coach, Coach F.A. Scott Kapoor, and I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. I'll say it with confidence, though, was trying to sit down with him earlier this season, but it never was able to come together, and even reached out to him for this segment. For those who don't know, Okemos High School, which is adjacent to Lansing, has shut down its varsity football this season, playing their last game, I want to say last week. This is based on a significant number of injuries and them just not having enough people. Now, we could leave it at that, but there's been a two-sided discussion, I believe, Terry, with people agreeing. I've been talking to a number of other coaches and athletic directors in the area that say, hey, man, safety is an issue. They had all these young guys, and unlike other sports, you go out there playing football not knowing what you're doing, you can get hurt real bad. I get that, and I'm glad that that is what people are saying. But then there's this other conversation. There's other conversation of those saying that, hey, this generation is just SOFT soft. And, whenever there's adversity, they shut it down. It's not a good idea. It's a slippery slope. And one little piece I'll add to that, I would throw in there, one could argue that Okemos is probably one of the most influential communities in the state of Michigan. And you wonder if there's been this ongoing 56-0 big type blowouts that they've been experiencing the first few games of the season, if along with there being these health concerns that people said, look, man, let's just shut this down before it gets ugly. And ugly not necessarily being injuries, but just such a stain to their reputation. I mean, they haven't won a football game in almost 2 full seasons, if not 3. Am I correct?
Yeah, this is definitely, I think it might be 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah. So the goal of having FA on here, which we couldn't do, was just to get him to talk about it. I know he has talked about it to some media outlets, but, it's an interesting thing. And what I wanted to do is really be able to promote that, regardless of how we may feel about a generation being soft, the reality is that I do want to stand with the idea of it was a safety first issue. Terry, you're a football guy. You put a freshman or a sophomore out there with one of these varsity guys who's on his way to, a Division I program or whatever it may be, and them kids not doing the right thing, them kids going to be laid out. And I think they got to the point, man, they had so many injuries mounting, they had to do that. But I just know that this can be a slippery slope. I know that the idea of just even with my daughter, I know she's in the other room watching TV, she's perking up when she's hearing me say this, that, if you start something, you want to finish it. And I wonder if it was a different program that wasn't as influential, didn't have as many members of the community who could be outspoken and kind of, wield their power, if you will, if it would have just been, hey, it's just going to be a long, hard season of, catching donuts and catching shutouts. So it's a lot going on with that. But what's your take on the whole idea of Okemos shutting down their program this season?
So I may have an unpopular opinion, but granted, for me, it's personal experience. So for me, I look through different articles and I'm hearing that, yep, players are injured, but I'm hearing that a lot of the upperclassmen were the ones that had the injuries and that there were a bunch of sophomores and freshmen that were available to play that, granted, safety issue. But for me, my sophomore year, I had a big group of sophomores in my class that played varsity. I mean, our team was majority sophomores and we had some freshmen sprinkled in. All of our seniors in that class ended up getting hurt and stopped playing. Granted, if we would have stopped playing that year, and granted, we took some big bumps. I mean, we played in the blue. That was the peak of the blue in the recent years. I mean, we played against a 9-1
blue you're referring to.
The peak of the CACC blue, yep, and the peak of the blue. So I mean, Okemos' year. The last year, Okemos was good. We played that year with Brock Jordan, Drew, Dominique, like the players that have went to go play at the next level.
Brock went on to Eastern Michigan.
Yep, D1 guys. I mean, we played against them, 9-1 Grand Ledge team. We played against Sexton, who Carl Brooks was on that team.
Hey, Carl get ready to go to the league too. Shout out to Carl.
Cody Blankenberg, Jackson Barnes, like every team we played on there had guys that could play at the next level in multiple positions. We're sophomores. So, like, for us, if we would have stopped playing, I don't believe that we would have gotten away with it. I think they would have said Eastern quit. Eastern didn't want to play. I truly believe that because there were sayings, and we gotten a lot of support for actually putting on and playing each game the way we played. I mean, we played hard. We weren't very good because we were inexperienced. We were 10th graders. I was 15 going against 18, 19-year-olds. I mean, players that I don't even think should have been eligible, but they're playing. So I just think right now where I'm seeing a lot of different people, and granted, there could be rumors, but a lot of people are like, we can't afford these L's anymore because, hey, we're lack of experience. We don't want this. But granted, what's going to happen next year? I mean, these are players, younger players that aren't playing. We got better because we played. We got experience. We took our lumps. But what are you going to do next year? Are you going to quit? What are you expecting next year? I mean, this isn't a quick fix. I read an article. I think it was WLNX, and they were talking about this is not a quick fix. This is not we don't play, and then next year will be even better. No, teams are getting better. Grand Ledge beat DeWitt, and you did a great job coverage in that game. Shout out to you. That was like Grand Ledge beat DeWitt. I mean, Grand Ledge was awful the last 2 years, but granted, they took their lumps, they took their bruises, and got better. So, and I think my dad's right there on it. I feel like Okemos' parents pushed. I think Coach Efe wanted to continue the season, knowing his personality, knowing his pedigree with East Lansing, and being that disciplined, value football team. I think he wanted to play. But granted, when you have your boss, your parents, and other very influential people telling you, hey, this isn't very safe. So I can see why people are saying this is pretty soft. And granted, I don't want to call it soft because these are definitely issues. But to me, these are issues that these issues are common around other teams too. I mean, you could have said the same thing about my team. You could have said the same thing about Everett's team right now, who Everett's team doesn't have one senior on there.
I know.
No
They have a sophomore quarterback. A freshman captain.
Yeah, and kids they are getting banged up, but granted, they are sticking it out and they're playing. So it's like they know.
That's Coach Wells' son. You got Coach Wells' son.
Yep, but Funches. I mean, Funches is a great player. He's inexperienced right now. He's gonna be a great player by the time he graduates. Yeah. So I mean, he's taking in bumps and bruises. This is a part of the game.
Terry's not buying it. So I don't want to hear this, man.
I'm not buying it, but granted, I do understand the issues in having that safety because I mean, granted, Waverly played them, and my godmother, Aunt Nicole, went to the game, and she said they just don't look very big. They don't look like a varsity team. So, and we didn't look like a varsity team. I mean, I'm out there 160 pounds in there playing safety, making tackles and stuff
but in that same sense, was that the season that you had a big injury to, though? Was that your senior season?
That was my senior season. That my sophomore year, I think I played pretty well versus the competition that we played. And so it's just one of those things where was the experience or was that just the excuse that they were able to get influence and get enough people to rally around it? I don't know, but I do believe Coach Efe inside wanted to finish that year. I think he wanted to finish.
I think the key is, and to your dad's point, and so I'm curious what Okemos' parents pushed the council too because of injuries and youth. You know, not taking anything away from the injuries part, and I can appreciate your personal perspective of you being pretty much in the same position as a sophomore. I just think that you're dealing with a more influential school district. That you know, the way this can come out, the way it's going to be painted, the way it's going to be colored, the narrative will be something different. And you're right. If it was good old inner city Eastern, Sexton, Everett, people will be like,
we quit,
not having it, you know. And then, I got one for you. I'll go even further to say, and this is not even right, but they will be making accusations about the character of the children.
100%.
Those inner city kids, they're quitters. That may, you know, all these things. But right now, that's not happening. So with that being said, man, that's why I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to give FA a chance to come talk about it more, man. I don't agree with the narrative of people being soft. However, I do know that there's some other optics going on right here. So, and you made a good point. You know, canceling the season don't mean it's going to be all good. because I just got a feeling that there's no real desire in that school for people to play football because for so long it's been associated with not having success. But you got to go through it to get to it. So we'll see. So I appreciate that. So we'll keep it moving tonight with what's going on the agenda. Okay, let's keep talking that now. Let's talk about some teams that's not going to have any problems when it comes to getting on the field and handling their business, man. I want to talk about Cass versus King, man. They're trying to bring it back together again. Is that going to be the potential rematch for the Detroit Community Schools City Championship? And that game is scheduled to go down on Friday, the 14th of October. I want to thank North Brothers 4, particularly my guy Larry Moore, my high school basketball teammate, for coming on board as a sponsor for that game. That game is looked to be played at Wayne State University. It's already been secured. Shout out to Jay Alexander and Anika McEvans, representing the athletic department for Detroit Public Community School District. But we'll see, man. What do you think that matchup would be like if you see a King going up against a Cass again? King got the best of them, but Cass was trying to make a comeback at the end. Shout out to the Bull, Corey Saller, the Cass, quarterback that was really putting in that work, man. What do you think that outcome would be if Cass and King face off again for the city championship?
I think King will win. I just think King just talent, just checks all the boxes. Cass too, which I think will be a great game. I mean, we've been hearing about Cass and King all the way here in Lansing. I mean, just a ton of players. I mean, they breed athletes to the next level, and they know what they're doing. I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Donnie Corley, just Dante Moore right now. I mean, we talking about right now, he's balling on his way to Oregon. So, I mean, he's a guy I think is going to be the X factor. I mean, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I mean, at the position that he played, he's just far more mature than athletes are at this age. Just guy that just gets it. He knows what it takes to win games. Granted, I mean, his previous years, his early years, playing at these higher levels and playing at these high, playing against better teams and getting a lot of extra work in the offseason has prepared him for this. But the guy is just mature. He's ready for it. I think they will come out on top just because of any guy like that's leading your team. I'm in a lot better hands of trusting him to have his guys ready to play. And the quarterback, I mean, if your quarterback's ready to play, making the right reads, making the right throws, I mean, you'll be in it to win it. And I feel like for him, this will be another good staple game to show why he's the best quarterback in the country.
Yeah, he's outstanding, and I think he's the type of leader that wants to get everybody involved, just not just on the field, but even post game. And you may have seen that he lined up about 4 of his teammates and made sure that they had some camera time with SPS doing that. Yeah, it'd be something to see. I know Cass has continued to be a strong program, and I have to give the edge to King, but you got to be careful to make sure that's not a trap game as well. And although the city championship is something to be proud of, them boys trying to get back to Ford Field for that state championship to be played November 25th or November 26th, and SPS will be in the building. Also want to say, man, as soon as tomorrow, we got another, who's just checking in? Late but here. Hello, fellas. Hey, Mom, how you doing? In the building. I was going to say also tomorrow, and giving a shout out to one of the coolest, newest restaurants in downtown East Lansing, referring to Goodfellas Bagel Deli. Tomorrow, East Lansing versus Waverly. SPS will be in the building. Then following the game of East Lansing versus Waverly, SPS will be over at Goodfellas at approximately 10 p.m. They're open, Terry, at night from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. Thursday through Saturday. That's right. Come on down to Goodfellas Bagel Deli in East Lansing. Shout out to my guy Adrian W. Joseph, the proprietor there, doing great things. 3 locations, one downtown Lansing, headed to the Capitol on Michigan Avenue, and then right across the street at Myers as well in the Capital Area City Market. And then we're going to be rocking over there, man. So SPS will be in the building, and it'll be something to look at, and don't sleep on, East Lansing. They've been kind of quietly toiling away right now, as well as Waverly. Waverly has surprised everyone with the way they started out this season. So there's some good football all the way around, man, to be played. Yeah. We're going to keep an eye on it. But what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, we'll start getting into these pre-district games, these regional games, and we have to figure out, hey, which game we got to get on the road to go check out, man, because it's going to be some great things happening all over the state, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. So that's what's going on around this time.
I want to get one quick shout out to Mr. Joseph. I mean, he just won an award called the 10 of 10.
Yep. Sure
And
did.
I mean, I just to let the listeners know what that is. I mean, it's it's the Greater Lansing's top young professionals who are anticipated to contribute to the community over the next 10 years. So a guy well recognized. I remember eating at his spot over there on Michigan Avenue, and I was like, man, this guy has potential. I mean, just great food. I mean, now he's open 10 p.m. to, you said 3 a.m.?
Well, throughout the week it's 8 to 4, but then
8
on
to 4.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday he's open from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m.
That just shows. I mean, the demand is there, especially in East Lansing, when around those hours, certain students are very hungry for particular reasons. So he's gonna make a ton of money.
No, it's gonna be a good thing. Like I said, we'll be there at 10 o'clock just to get things going. We'll be going live, just checking things out. But it's been a good thing. And you're right, he's an outstanding young person. He's gonna do some great things, and definitely the next 10 years plus is gonna be all his world. So we appreciate his support with that. So with that, man, we'll move on. We'll talk a little NFL. Before we'll talk about Tua, then I'll make sure I get back to Ron's comments as well. We have some more comments that were on deck regarding this season of football. I want to make sure I get those, including Lefty Johnson as well. But, here's a straight up question, man. Is Tua really okay? I mean, man, I read the article that talked about what was going on, man. And, the decision for Coach McDaniels to send him back out there in the second half and then to play him again, their next game. This what really got me, man. They had the nerve to say that when Tua was coming out after that first hit, when he went down and when he fell again, they had the nerve to say it wasn't based on the hit, it was based on a bad back. I say, dog, wobbling like this and you walking like this, that had nothing to do with your back. I mean, the nerve to say that. But the sad part of it is, Coach McDaniels is falling on his sword saying, look, man, I felt, I made the right decision with the information I had. I just don't think there's any mercy when it comes down to it. These guys were on a roll. They were playing good. Tua was the centerpiece of that. And he's like, man, you okay? Let's get you back out there. And it's sad to say that's, what these guys have to take on because they are in the NFL. But the other part about it, man, we can so easily see how fragile it can be, man. Is he going to be able to recover and get back in there? You would hope so. But you think, when you take that momentum away, and that fear he's going to have. I mean, how is he going to respond? I mean, I'm sure as a quarterback he's been hit before, but, they talk about being in a car accident. And I was in a car accident years ago. Gratefully, I walked away from it, but I remember one of my guys telling me, you just be careful when you get back in the car because you almost have this trauma. And you wonder now, how is he going to be responding? Is he going to have what they call happy feet in the pocket? Is he going to be trying to get out of there, faster than before? What is it going to be? But what's your take on everything that's going with Tua, and what do you predict going forward?
This is another case of where the game gets bigger than what it needs to be, if I'm honest. I was one of the neuroscientists named Chris Nowinski talked about how he tweeted and he said 2 concussions in 5 days can kill someone. And it made me think of how deep this actually is. I mean, yes, any concussion is serious, but 2 in a short week because they played Sunday. They played Thursday night. That's not a lot of time for him to be fully, evaluated, thoroughly. In my opinion, I think, and for me, I feel like any concussion you should be out the next week because I mean, with me in dealing with my concussion that I had, I needed that full week. I needed even longer. I needed 4 months to fully heal. And so I think for him, like,
say 4 months, not 4 days, huh?
4 months, and for him, and it kind of triggered me too, seeing his fingers and his body lock up. I mean, it really brought, some deep moments for me too, because I'm like, I remember feeling, like I couldn't control my body because of a hit, because of something that I couldn't control happened to me. Granted, I was playing, and I should have went down, but it was a hit that no one saw coming. So I completely feel where Tua was coming from. Granted, he loves the game and he wants to continue to compete. Those are his brothers. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, I think he should be out for at least 4 to 5 weeks to really heal, if that, because this is a serious injury. I mean, granted, he's still healing from the hit that he had Sunday. Thursday, quote unquote, he was good enough to play, and he gets another hit. And to be honest, the hit that he had on Thursday, as soon as he got tackled, his whole body like wailed, and he like slammed his head back. So like the guy just got a regular sack where he wrapped him, which is what they teach to make sure you secure the tackle and bring him down. Tua started wailing back and hit his head, and dude, it's like one of those hits where it's like that happens, but man, it's one of those things where Coach McDaniel should have pulled Tua on Sunday. He should have pulled them. I mean, these are things where you gotta be the big man in this situation. Although you're competitive, although you want to win, you need to look at Tua in the eyes and tell him you're not getting back in this game because I love you. You know, because you should not be back in this game. He should not have played Thursday. And I'm glad the NFL is investigating this because this is something serious. CTE is a real thing, and we want to make sure that our athletes are being protected, you know. And so I think for them to investigate it, the NFL Players Association is getting involved as well because these are things that need to be taken a better look at. How are concussion protocols? Because one thing, even for me, when I was in protocol, they go off your answers. So how you feel is what they basically go off of. I mean, I could have lied and said, I'm feeling pretty good and would have played the next time. Again, I couldn't fake mine because literally I was so out of it where it was like I couldn't fake mine. But who knows if Tua would have altered his answers to be able to play. There needs to be some new testing and new policy where he can't alter it. You're out no matter what for a week. Because that makes him accountable and makes sure that he's honest and make sure that he's in it for his best interest. You're out for a week, no matter what, concussion or not. If you are deemed to have a concussion, you're not playing the next week because this is stuff that will carry over to the next lifetime, lifespan of his years. Granted, he's young and he's playing, but he's going to be 50 and 60. And we're talking about Herschel Walker dealing with these issues. I mean, these are issues that stick with you if you aren't too careful with those, and he could end his life.
No, you're right, man. And you think back in hindsight, even though it's 2020, for him to go back in the game in the second half, Coach McDaniel went from being one of the most, highly, recognized and highly praised coaches in the NFL to that moment becoming the most vilified person. And he's kind of doubled down on it, saying he would do it again based on the information he had. Yeah, it's tough, man, because at the end of the day, this is a $1 billion industry. We'll talk about that in a section with some of the, money being spent. And I just think that, once you get, beyond big time college and, of course, the NFL, the priorities change. And you're right. It seems like a no-brainer, no pun intended, that there can be a rule in place that if you get hurt or there's a brain injury or something that, from the eye test, doesn't look good, something to be done. And I just hate that people will push back on that because there's always this extreme competitive desire to, make these type of decisions. I mean, not necessarily, concussion, but, talking about looking back on something, Ronnie Lott, and it's funny, my daughter and I were just talking about this a second ago. Ronnie Lott, man, when he ended up pretty much losing, part of his finger, and decided to continue to play. And years later, he looked back on it with regret, and he really struggled with it, saying, what have I done? What have I done? So it's almost like, you need coaches, GMs, or other leaders in the organization to save the player from themselves. Hell, to save the coach from himself. The coach is just as in the mix as that person because they want to what? They want to compete and win. So it's something to keep in mind, going forward, with that. But, man, there's definitely a lot going on with that. Let's get to some of our football questions that we have. I want to start with Ron. He was out the gate with it. He said, for NFL segment, who will win the NFL MVP this season? I don't know. Who are you thinking? Who are you thinking, Terry?
I think it's a three-headed race right now. Josh Allen may get back into it and make it a four-headed race, but I think it's either Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes. The two that I think are in, if I had to choose two, and if you pick either or, I wouldn't get at you, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill, guy that, who has been called, not as good as he seems because he has the best weapon in America on his team. I mean, dude is balling. He's making plays that you just can't think of. You can't draw up plays that he does. He makes something out of nothing. His throws and his arm angle is just tremendous. And then what he's able to pull off, compared to other quarterbacks, is just way more impressive. I mean, it reminds me, it's like Matthew Stafford in Detroit times 5. I mean, Stafford making these sidearm throws, but Mahomes is more electric with that, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it before our eyes. I mean, it's almost the best show on turf kind of feel whenever Andy Reid and him, are on the same team and on the same page. So, but Jalen Hurts, I think, is someone that could end up winning it just based off of his division and how the NFC is. I think statistically he can run away with this award. I mean, the Eagles, to me, have the best defense along with the 49ers in football. Jalen Hurts, man, the biggest knock on him was his throwing ability. Can he throw the ball consistently? And I feel like he's answered that question. And he got his number one receiver in the offseason. But you can see what it looks like when you build around your young quarterback and you entrust him with the keys of the offense. And he's electric. He runs the ball well. I mean, he's a part of their running game, which makes the defense account for him as a runner, which makes it 10 times harder. And I mean, he's making throws that are, Devontae Smith is playing really well for him. I think Jalen Hurts will win, but Patrick Mahomes playing in a harder division may get him the award because right now Patrick Mahomes has the Chiefs, arguably the best team in football right now.
You got that support. Terry, for the last few moments you've been speaking, we've been getting some feedback. So I want to ask you to do, can you just come out of the segment really quick and take yourself out and then come right back in to see if they change the connection? And we'll be holding right here for you, okay? While Terry goes ahead and get that together, very, very good thought. He's kind of going with, Patrick, my homeboy, Mahomes, that is, leading the way for the MVP. It'd be something to see with that. I'm not surprised. I'm still, rooting for the Jalen Hurts of the world with what he has going on. We'll see what happens, with this next game. Here's Terry right here. Terry, let's see how that sounds.
Is it better?
Hey, man, crystal clear. There you go. There you go. Yeah, so with that being said, Jalen Hurts, man, we'll see what happens, man. They're 4-0. It's still early on. It's probably about, a quarter through the season. We'll see. It's a long season indeed, but it'd be something to watch out for. Also, too, another comment regarding some NFL football as well. Ron also asked, do we expect a breakout game tonight from Russ Wilson? Because he's been getting blazed. They've been talking about that man real bad. What do you think?
Russell, I mean, he's a guy where I'm a big fan of. I love his demeanor. I love his attitude towards the game. But, I mean, he's been struggling. I mean, he's not throwing the ball at a high of a level that I would have thought he would be at this moment. I mean, they're going against the Colts, so the Colts are struggling. They're going to give Russell a ton of opportunities, whether it's based off punting and their conservative kind of play. And with Jonathan Taylor, I don't believe he's suiting up this game. But I just think Russell will have the opportunities, but he's just not throwing the ball really well up the middle. He's not really hitting his guys. He's not really looking like to be in tune with his receivers. But I think he has a chance, and I think he will have a better game. I don't know about breakout game because I know breakout game compared to these other quarterbacks means 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 300 yards. I just don't see that. The Broncos are missing one of their better running backs, Javonte Williams, for the rest of the year. I mean, towards ACL, and then Melvin Gordon, in the backfield. He's been struggling with fumbling. The Broncos just don't look, as good as we have thought they were with adding Russ. Because, I mean, people were saying that Russ was the completed piece of the puzzle. I mean, guy come in, and this team could be a Super Bowl contending team. But I'm like, look, this is a different league. That Broncos team isn't ready. I think it was a bit premature to start saying that they were Super Bowl contenders. But I think Russ, to answer your question, I think Russ will have a better game tonight. He will look a little bit like normal Russ, but not the Russ we're used to seeing, the MVP Russ back in Seattle. I don't think we'll see him again.
That's a tight way to go. And there's so many expectations. That's kind of been a theme. Expectations for the big payday, but it doesn't always happen like that. Lefty Johnson, shout out to you. You said, how far can Aaron Judge, he's playing baseball. Aaron Rodgers take the Packers, and can Cooper Rush actually take Dak's job? I'll say yes, Cooper Rush can take Dak's job. I mean, at the end of the day, if them boys get to rolling and it doesn't seem like he can get it done, it happens like that. That's the worst thing about an injury sometimes, not just you being out because you're injured, but someone else can step in. So you want to think about that continuity going far. As far as Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, man, I just feel you can't ever count Aaron Rodgers out, despite how people may feel about him with his off-field, aloofness and the way he may go about doing things. He's a winner, and somehow those guys seem to always try to get closer to the title game all the time. What do you think, Terry? Excuse me.
I think we'll see how Cooper Rush does these next upcoming games. I mean, they play against the Rams and the Eagles coming up. So that'll be definitely 2 games to see how well he can play. 2 high-level defensive teams who, you will be competing with, in the NFC. So I think those games will determine if Cooper Rush is legit or not. I think Cooper Rush has done a great job in this situation. He's in this job to win games while Dak is out. I don't think he can take Dak's job just based off the fact that they paid Dak and they want Dak to come back and make the most of their investment. But I think we'll see how great of a quarterback Cooper Rush is. Granted, he's from Lansing, so I hope he does well. But Aaron Rodgers, a guy where the Packers, I think if they didn't have A-Rod, it'd be a lot worse. I mean, the Packers defense has played better. But their offense just hit some slumps, and they win ugly games that we're not used to seeing Aaron Rodgers in. He looks more frustrated, this year. He looks like he's not really all the way in it mentally. I just think the Packers, I mean, they're in a great standing right now, 3-1, right behind, tied for first with the Vikings, which is always in good company because the Vikings are a good team this year. But I just think that the Packers are about a 5 or 6 seeded team. And I think they depending on the matchup, I think they win round 1 and then lose round 2. But depending on the matchup, they can very well lose round 1 to a good team like the Eagles or, maybe the Buccaneers or someone.
Yeah, we so well know that, man, anything can happen, man. Anything can go down. And, again, it's early in the season and there's a lot of things unfolding already. So we'll see what's happening with that. Mike, who's the best player in the NFL right now? Who do you think, Terry?
The best player right now to me is Patrick Mahomes. I think Mahomes is the better player. I think who's more valuable to their team, I think it could be Jalen or Mahomes. But I think as of today, if I had to say who the best player was, it'd probably be Mahomes. I think Mahomes is – this dude is legit. I mean, if he retires today, I think he's in the Hall of Fame. That's
what do you think about Lamar Jackson?
Lamar's up there too, but I just don't like how the Ravens are doing him. One, I don't think he should be playing because football is so different. But with the contract situation and him possibly getting hurt and ruining his money, but I think Lamar is definitely top 5 in the league right now. I mean, leader, and I think he's one of the leaders in passing touchdowns, passing yards, throwing the ball really well. I mean, that was the biggest flaw that everyone was saying about Lamar, but he's making it happen. And so I think his defense needs to help him out a little bit. I think second half Ravens football needs to tighten up as far as keeping their foot on the gas and continue to play aggressive. I think Harbaugh can get a bit conservative and rely on his defense to hold the lead instead of trying to continue to score points. You got to score points in this offensive lead. You cannot rely on your defense because once the offense continues to click, it's hard to turn that switch back on once you turn it off and just play conservative and play not to lose. So
yeah,
Lamar is definitely top 5, but I do think, obviously Hurts and Mahomes are getting a lot of spotlight because their teams are doing fairly well at this point in the season. But Lamar he's very capable of winning MVP again. But I just think that it does take a complete team. It does, because football is the ultimate team sport. And I think right now Mahomes is just clear-cut the best player in the league right now.
No, that's fair. That's fair and appreciated. Sticking with football, another potentially controversial issue is Buffalo's planned 2026 new stadium costing approximately $1.4 billion. That's right, billion with the B, and some 800,000 of that being paid for with taxpayers' money. Hey, give you a little bit more insight, man. It's tight in Buffalo. Buffalo, there was an area, a predominantly black area that was originally settled by, I believe, some German immigrants called the Fruit Belt that African Americans ended up becoming, members of that community. It became a thriving community, but based on the white flight of the 60s and the 70s, they put a freeway right through the middle of that, to help whites get to the suburbs, and it pretty much decimated that community. They talked about at times that there were some games that used to take place there. You can see the white patrons running from the stadium, War Memorial, I want to say it was referred to, all the way down to their cars down the hill because they felt they were unsafe. And here it is, this burden is going to be placed on the taxpayers, and then also too, it's not like, it's being placed in a community where individuals can benefit and they surely can't even go to the game. So there's been a pattern for years and years and years, man, of these big new facilities coming in. The same thing with LA, the Rams' new stadium, coming in, getting these extreme tax breaks, putting all this on to the community. And they always sell it as a community investment opportunity, talking about the community will benefit. They start talking about the jobs. But you go back, man, and audit these situations, man, it'd be criminal. It is criminal in many cases. But here we are again, with this situation going to happen. And it's kind of like a theme, man. We kind of touched on it earlier when we talked about certain communities having more influence over others. And here it is. And the article said the Buffalo Bills are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. Who are you kidding? I watched Buffalo lose 4 times, man. You can't tell me nothing about Buffalo being no favorite to win no Super Bowl. I'm sorry. I don't care how good Josh Allen is slinging and how good they look. They got it. There's a curse in Buffalo. And yeah, I said it, so we'll see. But 1.4 billion, man, it's a beautiful facility. But I think the argument goes out the window of like how beneficial is this to the community that's having to carry that,
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that a lot of these communities probably can't afford to go to these games, which shows that is it really a community investment and community engagement opportunity if the community is not even able to engage in it? I mean, I think it's another way to make stuff sound good, to get people to sign off on it because it's their favorite team, and it's just another space to exploit. I'm not a big fan of it. I think, granted, if this was truly an opportunity to do so, because we've seen if a good football team is in your community by numbers is going to grow. I mean, there's a book called The Saturday Millionaires talking about how college football teams who their football teams do well, it benefits the economy as a whole in that city. It's a great read. So I think it's one of those things where it does and it can be an engagement opportunity. But a lot of times the money it gets calling and people want to worry about how can we grow instead of how can we actually engage in what the opportunity was originally planned for and what it's supposed to do. And I think, we hear about, we can make this much seats because our team is doing good. But what about the neighborhood on the block that you want to engage in? They'll never be able to see their favorite team, which is why you have kids to this day who have never been to their favorite team's game. I mean, I just was able to go to an Ohio State game. I'm blessed to go with my dad and be able to enjoy that. But granted, those tickets aren't cheap. A lot of saving, a lot of penny pitching to be able to get those seats. But it just shows, man, this is a business, and profits speak louder than fan base at times because they want to do what's best for their business, what's best for the team profit-wise than it is for their fan base. So I think if, ownership and they have some accountability in doing this, I'm all for this. But if it's just another way to have something that's bigger and better, because now the Bills are trying to compete with the Rams. They're trying to compete. Every new stadium, the Rams, competing with the Chargers and competing with Vegas. Like all these stadiums, they're all competing with each other. I mean, the new stadium that came out for Northwestern, what they're trying to do over there, it's all a competition. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, these teams that they don't even like, but they're like, oh, they had the better stadium, so we got to go up our stadium. We want a stadium to have a club, a diner. We want all these things. So it's like, if it's actually for the community, say that, do that. Don't say all these things. If you just want a bigger stadium for your good football team, just say that, have the transparency, and may take extra private funding in order to make this happen. But we all know good and well that they are capable of doing that. They want to do it the easy way and have the people pay on it because it's something that, honestly, we're a lot easier to sucker into. But if the community stands their ground and really talks about what they really want and want engagement with the team, I think it's something that'd be great for the community.
Yeah. The higher up you go in sports, from amateur to professional, the more sexier and more sex appeal there is. So when people talk about something like this, even though it's a lopsided deal where the taxpayers bear the brunt with little to get on a return on investment, because it's an NFL team, it's just sexy and it sells. It gets everybody attention. But you make a good point, man. But until these programs are kind of stopped in their path until they kind of just push back and say, no, that's not going to happen, man. It's definitely going to just be an ongoing situation with that going forward, man. Definitely going to be that. So with that being said, man, we'll keep an eye out for that. That's not until 2026. I don't know if a lot is going to happen that's going to change the dynamic of what's happening with that, but we've seen it so many times, and just hope going forward that doesn't continue to be the case where people are left out. You got a few more things we're going to talk about, man, before we get out of here, man. We're right around the hour mark. They talk about, the greatest name in sports is Steve, Steeve. Ho, you fat. And it has kind of made the rounds already, man. This Frenchman, that is, who's playing. He was playing in one of the playing against the G League Ignite the other night. There was like a doubleheader with high school NBA basketball, making his way back. But he just stole the show. Did you hear the commentator responding to him when he said, "Ho, you fat"? And, he got a kick out of saying it, but he had to go back. But I just think it just speaks to, all these unique things that happen. And what happened when you saw "Ho, you fat"? What was your take on that?
I thought it was a joke because I remember back in the bubble when John Morant changed his last name to F12, and I was like, oh, okay, they really they going way off the boundary as far as changing the last name. So I thought it was like one of those events where they were able to pick what they wanted on the back, which I was like, wow. But the fact that that's his name, I don't know what I can really say about that. It's funny. It makes me think of Dakotas Crawford. That's another name that I think that name is the best name out there. Dakotas Crawford. I think that name, because this dude is a freshman right now playing college ball, suffered an injury in fall camp, and this guy has endorsements. NIL is going crazy for him. This dude is making bank, and he hasn't played it down yet. Just because his name is Dakotas Crawford.
Yeah, I know that's crazy, man. Well, it's going to be something we're going to keep an eye out. We'll see if this ends up being the most popular name. Ho, you fat going into it. Terry, what we got right now, man, we're past the hour mark. It's been a good time, even though we didn't have our third partner in crime, Orlando Watkins. Any closing remarks before we let you get out of here?
I'm really excited for this weekend. Ohio State, granted, I don't like when we play MSU, especially when MSU is down the year, because personally, I got a lot of ties to Michigan State. I cheer for MSU. When they lose, I feel like I lose too. It's one of those fields where, you want them to do well. But Midnight Madness is tomorrow.
That's right.
And I will be there. I hope, I will have an MSU shirt on that night, and I will take it off as soon as midnight hits because it's down to business, down in East Lansing. So, I will be on my phone. I'm sure we'll be texting during the game. Our eyes will be on the same game. But, again, Midnight Madness, I'm excited for what Izzo has this year. This year is going to be a great year. AJ Hoggard, hopefully, him and Tyson Walker, a lot of issues in the backcourt last year. This is a year where they had that offseason. They had that year together. So hopefully this year will be great for them as they have a more experienced backcourt, getting guys like Joey Hauser and Malik Hall back. This team should be well experienced to hopefully make a deep run in March.
Yeah, well, somebody's going to have to pick up the slack for the Michigan State banner right now. If football is having a down season, and maybe basketball can bring it back. Hey, man, always a pleasure. We'll definitely be in touch. I want to thank everybody for checking us out, and we'll be back next week. Lindsey Hudson with SPS with Terry McCord Jr. signing off. Peace.